What up, dude bros? I'm Frank. This is another episode of Versus, a series where I compare two blasters or topics in the Nerf scene. This episode, semi-automatic versus full automatic. Let's start out with defining both of them, just in case it's a little unclear. Semi-automatic is an automatic fire mode where every trigger pull equals one shot fired. You don't have to input your own energy like a spring-powered retaliator or something where you're top priming it. Every time you pull the trigger, you go pew, pew, pew. Compared to fully automatic, which is when the user will press the trigger and can hold down the trigger and fire multiple shots. So one trigger pull and you're like, pew, 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 pew. Rate of fire can vary, but it's all full auto. Before we go over the differences, let's go over the similarities of semi and full auto compared to everything else, which is pretty much like bolt action or, manual prime like a retaliator or a strong arm, spring powered mostly. First similarity, the rate of fire is better than, not semi or full. When you have to manually prime back the retaliator every time, it's slower than if you just had to pull the trigger or just hold down the trigger in full auto's case. Next similarity, which doesn't actually apply to all of them, but mostly they're battery powered. There are other propulsion mechs, especially like air, like a mag strike, for example, but most of the current semi-auto or fully automatic blasters are battery powered, and that comes with its own pros and cons. Those are the two biggest similarities in my opinion. Semi and full auto are just so different as they are, so listing out similarities like, oh, they're all in Nerf blasters, they're all this, who cares? Let's go over the differences. Of course, by going over the pros, starting out with the semi-automatic blasters. First pro of semi-auto is the trigger feel, because most of them operate on a mechanical trigger. When you pull the trigger, you can mechanically feel yourself pushing the dart through the flywheels. Slip it in there nice and smooth like. This is nice because it connects you with the blaster so you have a better experience, kind of like driving a manual or standard transmission vehicle. You're more connected to the device, car or blaster. And for a performance-oriented nerfer, of course, that's preferred. Next pro is the forced self-control regarding ammo consumption. Semi-automatic, generally speaking, fires less rounds per minute or per hour than full auto. So if you go to a Nerf war with semi-auto, you should be shooting less darts, which means you spend less time loading, collecting darts, and you have to spend less money on darts. And the same number of magazines on your body will last longer, so you won't, be out of the fight. Some people say, oh, you can just have self-control with full auto. When you have full auto, no, you don't. When you see a bunch of zombies, you go, and you just spray them. With semi-auto, you are forced to go a little slower, so you're more conscious about your ammo consumption. Next pro, semi-auto Nerf blasters are generally speaking cheaper because they're mechanically simpler and they cost less to produce from Hasbro. And spending less is generally better than spending more. So those are the pros, in my opinion, of semi-auto compared to full auto. Now let's go over the pros of fully automatic. First pro, faster rate of fire, generally speaking. As I've demonstrated in my modified Strife 430 dart challenge video, you can finger bang an unrestricted semi-auto blaster pretty fast. But the energy input, because you're sitting there using two hands on firing, it's not realistic to expect that performance over a prolonged amount of time. And you can't do that one-handed, so you can't dual wield. So generally, faster rate of fire goes to fully automatic blasters. Because who needs to aim when you can spray and pray? Next pro, getting into the psychology of Nerf. When you full auto spray at somebody, it's intimidating as regardless of if you're actually hitting your opponent or getting near them. When the opponent sees a cloud of darts falling down on them because the full auto fire, it's intimidating, and that makes them generally hide behind cover. And have you ever been behind cover when somebody goes full auto and actually shoots at the barrier instead of missing and all the darts go past you? It goes da 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 and it taps, and it's just a constant audible reminder saying, hey, if you pop your head up, you're gonna get tagged. Intimidation! 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 Only with full auto. Or finger banging or Strife, like I said, but details. And the last advantage, which is kind of an extension of rate of fire, it's much easier to engage a huge group of people, like a horde of zombies. If there are 20 people rushing at you, it's much easier to just hold down the trigger and shoot all of them at once. And you can just mow all the zombies down and then reload and mow the other way. Just back and forth, wax on, wax off. Very much an extension of rate of fire, but a very practical element for, zombies and certain game types. And the last and probably most important pro, it's tactical as because everybody in the movies and everybody in the video games has full auto guns and they don't use blasters. And everybody wants to run around as their favorite movie characters going and they all shoot full auto, or at least the cool ones. So tactics, oh yeah, blast pro. So which is better, semi-automatic blasters or fully automatic blasters? In my opinion, for the majority of nerfers, semi-automatic blasters. Which is a weird opinion, I know, because in a lot of controlled conditions, a full auto blaster will destroy a semi-automatic blaster, just like a semi-automatic blaster, or like a flywheel, will kill a spring blaster like a retaliator. Flywheel master race, woo! But here's my logic. This opinion holds over most nerfers, or at least the average nerfer. The cost of going full auto is simply too high, in my opinion, for the majority of nerfers. It means carrying a bunch of extra mags, which are bulky, and extra money to buy, extra time to load up those mags, and then when you spew all your foam all over the place, it it's more time to collect, and since nobody has a 100% collection rate, darts get damaged, darts get lost or stepped on or even stolen in some games. Shooting less is going to be cheaper long term. So semi-auto, you're restricted to shooting less because of your lowered rate of fire. So, you know, it's more practical, I think, for most nerfers. That being said, if you run with a squad of at least 4 or 5 people, having one guy or girl with a fully automatic blaster can be an awesome support role. Everybody else using flywheel, or if you have a stealthy ninja who doesn't like batteries, they can have a retaliator, fine. Then there's one person who can just lane the enemy and just spew a stream of foam. That's why it's called like laning, like a lane. Well, that's like a rod, but will their accuracy be high? Probably not. They might not even get that many kills. But, you know, as far as the strategery of Nerf wars goes, strategery. Having one guy just go, it's really effective to let other people run around and get certain barriers or, you know, tackle certain objectives. So that's my opinion, semi versus full. Now, what is better than both? Select fire, like the Boomco Colossal Blitz. Being able to stay in semi-auto most of the time to be a practical nerfer, going pew pew pew, and then if you get rushed by a zombie horde, it's more effective at that particular time to have a full auto blaster. So you manually switch it into full auto, you spew a lane of foam, you kill all the zombies, you reload, then you go back to semi, so then you don't waste ammo elsewhere. That would be awesome. And then if you have all 4 or 5 guys with that, then you can kick out the retaliator dude. You will wreck everyone. 5 dudes with select fire like rapid strikes. If the response time of the trigger in semi was similar to a mechanical trigger, that would be the best Nerf blaster in my opinion, like ever. Hint hint, Hasbro. Pretty please? Pretty please? Christmas is coming. Please surprise me. Please. The mechanical switch is necessary instead of just, you know, control firing full auto, because in the panic, you'll accidentally hold down the trigger and you'll waste all your ammo when you're not intentionally, consciously going into full auto mode. Heck, you could even call it, instead of semi-auto, full auto, in case Hasbro doesn't want to put that on a Nerf blaster. I would get that. Label it practical and tactical for semi and full. That'd be freaking awesome and like super accurate. Pretty funny versus episode. Which is better, this or this? Neither. Select fire, but you know, for most nerfers, in my opinion, semi-auto. But that concludes this episode of Versus. If you have an idea for a future episode, leave a comment in the section below. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Frank. As always, stay tactical. Or practical if you want to run semi. A series where I compare two... A series when I compare sounds like Hey Siri. Damn it, Siri interrupting my shoots. Strategery!